Hello and welcome to PMI's Uncommon Sense podcast, tools to improve your work forever. I'm Susanna Clark, Managing Partner with PMI, the performance improvement consulting and training firm. Our Uncommon Sense podcast is a 15-minute conversation with our expert consultants. They talk a lot of common sense, although much of it is not common practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. We want you to be inspired to improve your business through learning more about the tools which can help you succeed and grow. Today, I'm delighted to have Sean Buckland in the Uncommon Sense studio with me. Today, we're going to talk about Agile Visual Management.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to ask you, what do you mean by Agile Visual Management?
Well, let's break this down. So 3 words: Agile, Visual, and Management. I'm going to start with the back, management. So management in its, just to boil it down in one way, is how do we control the use of resources to achieve and deliver value? Visual, kind of what is quite straightforward in this sense. Can we see the resources and the state of the resources and the work to be done? And then the agile piece is specifically referring to what's grown out of agile software development, which is the effective way of managing the work to be done to complete a new software rollout or update a piece of software, or whatever it is within the scope of that project to do. So to summarize it backwards is, how do we use the way that software developers have learned to manage their backlog of work in a clear visual way, and so that we're making the best use of our resources to deliver the value we set out to do.
What we're not talking about is only in the software development field. We're talking about this for any piece of work that you might be involved with.
If you have a situation that is similar, so you have a backlog of specific pieces of work to do that are clearly defined, well known in advance, agreed need to be done, and they're all roughly of a similar sort of size to be done. There's no point having one piece of work that's 2 years and a team of 30 and another one that's 2 minutes and a team of 0. But if we have got a situation that's similar to, we have a series of features or a series of changes we wish to make, and each one of them can be time boxed into whatever the appropriate length of time, typically 2 weeks, and completed within that period of time, then yes, it becomes a very effective way to visually manage the work.
So tell me more about it. What would I, in that context?
Well, let's see this as a process, and so with the process, what we need some inputs, some of which are contextual, environmental, some of which are the things that we're going to transform. And then we need a process, and then we need to use that to deliver an output. But as I've already referred to, the output here, what I'm looking for is the value to be created with the best possible use of resource. So when I'm looking at the inputs, I need a set of things that have already been worked out as being the right thing to do. So the visual management piece starts after we have already agreed that is a piece of work that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. The input has further characteristics, and these are things often called user stories. And the user story is very clear about who the customer of that value is, what the value is that they're looking to achieve, and why they need that value, and any constraints around that value. One of the areas where I see Agile Visual Management going wrong is it's very poor in its definition of value. By failing to connect the user story to value, what ends up happening is just a long list of things to be done that somebody thought might be useful. The second thing we need as a good input, an effective input, is the right team to work on it. Have we got enough of the right resources, both in terms of capacity, time, and skill, and an environment? And the environment's very important, because those people who are taking user stories and putting them into the process to be transformed into an agreed change need to have the authority to work together. They need to have the authority to work with the customer. to do the changes that need to be done because the user story might still be wrong. It was the best we could do, but it might not actually be right later. And of course, we need the team members who are seeing the overview. Do all of the individual pieces of the jigsaw all still fit in this particular picture? And then we need a space where that team can come together. Now, it could be a virtual space using a collaborative software tool, or it might be a physical space like a room with a wall, clear wall. But we can't have a visual management system without a space to put everything we wish to visually manage. And it all must be visible at a glance, so I can see the whole picture in one place. And that space is therefore a crucial environmental input. And the other crucial environmental input, as I say, is the team has got the authority to act.
Okay, so what I understand is this is perfect for dealing with backlogs. It's where you are going to address that backlog within a rapid amount of time, say 2 weeks, as you said, and you've done all of the setup. So you've got the connections to the value, the user stories, all of the inputs required, the team, the space. So if you've got all those conditions, then help me understand, what does this look like?
Yeah, indeed. The crucial thing about a backlog is, as we know from our lean world, of backlogs create delay, they create waste, and so on. So we want to be able to clear that backlog as quickly as possible. So let's just do some very simple arbitrary maths here. Let's say we've got 30 different individual pieces of change that need to be done. And each one has been sized into something that we can at least design and test in the spirit of 2, maximum 4 weeks. So 100 pieces of work, all to be done, but we've only got time to do 10 of them at once. Let's say my team size is 10 people, and each one takes one of them. Then I can get to some very clear sense of, number one, which 10 do we choose first? And if I've got all of them put together, we could have a rational decision-making process with the available team, with the available resources, which are the first 10 to work on. And we can then move those, physically move or digitally move them from the space, the hopper of work to be done, into the hopper of work in progress. And so we have a board. It's often known as the Kanban board, but I'll come back to that. There's a slight issue with that naming, but it is the standard name for it, which on the one side of it, the left-hand side of it, we have the issue of what's in the backlog, and we can see it all. And then we've got our work in progress column. Lovely. We move it across. It's now very clear. We can put individuals' names on it. We can visually see who is working on what. This is very powerful because if I know I've only got 10 resources in the team, and each person can only work on one project at a time or one user story at a time, then by the time I've run out of names to attach, I don't overpromise. So once we've got something moved into the work in progress, it will either make progress or it will get stuck. And because it's now isolated, in this example, there's just 10 items on the board. When we have our daily stand-up meeting, which is another key part of the visual management process, what it is the team members looking at the board and saying, have I made the expected progress or not? And if the answer is yes, great, move on, keep moving. If the answer is no, we have got a daily responsive capability to say there is something putting this project off track. And we can turn that post-it note, that user story from orange, work in progress, to red, it's blocked. It's behind schedule. It's out of tolerance. The whole project may not be out of tolerance yet, but ultimately a whole project goes out of tolerance because of the sum of the tolerances of the individual parts. So one by one, we can fix things. And it either becomes fixable, in which case it goes back in, or it becomes unfixable. We have to take it out and put it back into the backlog for doing some other time. Which means we theoretically, down to the nearest day, we can make the best use of the resources, purely because we have that board that says, am I still orange or have I turned red? And of course, at some point, the answer is, no, I'm not still orange, I'm not red, I'm green, I'm done.
Yeah.
I think this is now ready for testing in the live environment. So once it goes green, it can move to the next stage where it's orange again. It stays orange, but is now in that final testing ready for rollout. And of course, when it then goes green, it can be moved on into the completed folder. Yeah. And the beauty of this is over time, it's highly motivational. We can see the backlog getting smaller, the amount of work to do always feeling steady and manageable so that people don't feel overstressed and pressured. Great for the people. If something does go wrong, it's very obvious what has gone wrong and where, so we can target the management capability into exactly where it's needed within a day. And of course, the pile of green stuff at the end is getting bigger and bigger. And that's really helpful for the team to work together. And the beauty of it is it all just comes from this simple board. What have we got to do? What are we working on? What are we testing? What have we finished? And this is one of the reasons it's called a Kanban board, because traditionally, Kanban comes from the Kanban square, which says, if empty, fill me. It's a signal to create a leveled flow throughout the factory. And the same thing works in the project, because we know there's variation. Some user stories might be completed within a day or two. We thought it would take longer. And some might take 4 weeks when we thought it would only take 2. But that's fine, because as long as the right thing to do is to leave it in the work in progress column, it's filling up one of our available slots, capacity slots. But if one becomes available because something finishes early, then we can just pull the next priority from the backlog, and therefore it creates this steady, even flow. And the steady, even flow is what allows the team to stay in the zone, concentrating without feeling burdened with pressures, overloaded with work, expectations, and so on. And likewise for the management team, they can look at the board and go, we know what you've got done, we know what you're working on, we know roughly when we expect that to be finished, and we know what you're working on next. Again, in the webinar, Agile Improvement Myth or Magic, there's a slide that it shows what I'm about to describe. So for doing this, I would suggest a slightly different board. It's broadly the same as what I've just said, but with a subtlety here. And that is, instead of the backlog being things to implement, user stories, because at this point, we don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
All we've done is we've spoken to voice of the customer. They said, this is what I value. We've learned about the process and found out that we're not delivering that value and what the gap is. And then we've done some root cause analysis work to find out what are the root causes. In the case, therefore, of a continuous improvement Agile Visual Management board, I would do something slightly different. On the left-hand side, it would be the backlog of root causes we have not yet eliminated. We could then choose, by discussing with the management team, with the project team, which one, maybe 2 root causes we're going to pull forward to prioritize the elimination of. One might be to do with how we set up appointment systems with our customers. Another one might be how we're handling stores replenishment. These are clearly totally different projects. But the key thing here is each root cause, then we can work with our project team. We can pull together the right team for that specific root cause. We can then brainstorm out, using the appropriate methodologies, what solutions we think we might test, prioritize them into which ones we wish to test first. Because again, plan, do, study, act, absolutely crucial here. We may come up with many theories about how to fix something, but we should be very careful to test the best 1 or 2 at a time and then learn from those until eventually we have actually eliminated that root cause. So it's a slightly different goal. In the traditional Agile software development, we're trying to design some software to do a specific task. In the improvement project, we're trying to design solutions, unknown solutions, to remove specific root causes. So the backlog becomes a backlog of solutions to be tested. But once we have found the one or the best set of solutions that eliminate that root cause, by default, all the other ideas weren't needed and they can come off the board. So section 1 of the board what are the root causes that we need to fix? Section 2, which ones are we working on right now? Section 3, and that's attached to which team are putting it together and so forth, when are they meeting and so on. Then each one gets its own line. What's the backlog of solutions they're going to test? Then pull across into the work in progress column, which solution are we testing now? And the aim would be, again, within that 2-week sprint type concept, we will test this idea within the next 2 weeks, evaluate it, and then decide to improve it, adopt, adapt, abandon accordingly. If it goes abandon, it goes into the completed but not useful pile with reasons why, because we want to retain that lesson learned. And if it's adapt, it stays in the work in progress, but at least we know it's there and the team knows it's got to carry on. And of course, if it's adopt, we can then adopt it and move it into the completed turning green. And here's the data to prove that we've adopted it and it's working better. And therefore, a completion will be, at the end, 2 piles, the red and the green. The green being this is what we have implemented and how much benefit it's given us. And the red is what we failed, what we've tested and abandoned and why. So that future process owners don't make the mistake of thinking, what a great idea that would be.
Yes.
They can look back through the previous experience. It's slightly more complex, but it's a more complex problem. We don't know what solution we want to create.
So Agile Visual Management, what you can use it for, and also how you can take lessons from it and apply it to your own continuous improvement projects. That's really great. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find more episodes of our Uncommon Sense Tools to Improve Your Work Forever in our Knowledge Hub on our website, or, of course, your favourite podcast platform. And do subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode, where you'll find links to more content on this topic, which includes webinar recordings, toolbox guides, blogs, and infographics, and our training page. You can always drop us a line on team@pmi.co.uk and arrange a time to have a call to talk about how these tools can help you in your organisation. We'd really love to hear from you.